Hey everyone, Jake here from CBP. Sony have just announced their latest Alpha Series camera, the A9 III. I know our little community here cares more about the video and cinema side of camera technology, and this is a camera more aimed at photographers, but it features some really exciting new technology that we will hopefully see used in Sony's future video and cinema cameras. Sony were kind enough to invite me out to Turkey to get a few hours of hands-on time with the A9 III and their new 300mm f2.8 to shoot some sports. However, this won't affect my opinion at all, and Sony has had no input on this video or our thoughts. I actually gave them a bunch of constructive feedback on the camera in person. I took an A7S III as well as a couple of dual-lens APO mini primes and this awesome Modulate tuner to use with them. This is an E2PO adapter that allows you to dial in a look which is inspired by that of a ball tar. I will try and label these shots as I also managed to get this onto the A9 III. We should be doing a video soon on the Modulate series, so let us know if you have any comments about them down below. The A9 III has been designed around one thing: speed. And at the core of this design philosophy is Sony's brand new full-frame 24.6 megapixel global shutter sensor. It's the first of its kind to make its way into a consumer available camera. However, it actually isn't the first full-frame global shutter sensor to be introduced, as Canon announced their LI5030SA, but Sony has beaten them to bring it to market in an actual camera. There are other video-focused cameras on the market that have global shutter sensors, but this is the first time that we've seen it in a photography camera and the first time we've seen a full-frame one. When we say global or rolling shutter, what we are referring to is the way the camera is exposing the photo sites on the sensor. A global shutter is exposing the entire sensor at the exact same instance. Think of it like the sensor is either all on or all off. Whereas the cameras that use a rolling shutter read the sensor a line at a time from top to bottom, almost emulating the way a mechanical shutter passes down a sensor or film plane. This means that these sensors can be very desirable for photographers, videographers, and cinematographers for several different reasons. The largest reason for most is to avoid the artifacts that can be seen from a rolling shutter sensor with a slower readout speed, such as the jello effect. This can be visible while filming fast-moving subjects in your frame. This is because they are changing position in the frame faster than the readout of the sensor. This means you get warping, which can occur in a range of different scenarios, but common subjects are helicopter blades, aggressive whip pans, fast cars, so pretty much anything fast. But a slow enough sensor will make your footage look a bit weird when filming in just regular active kind of scenarios. This makes rolling shutters not ideal for fast-paced action cameras, such as when given to a fast-moving operator, mounted inside or on cars, or when panning to track the action. Ultimately, every vertical line will become skewed. This effect can look better or worse depending on how fast the camera can read the sensor. Take the A7S III for example, which has a very fast sensor readout of roughly 9 milliseconds. And this means that this effect is massively reduced, but not eliminated like it will be with a global shutter sensor. The second effect can be seen when a light source is too fast for the entire frame to read. Take for example the flash caused by lightning or a photography flashbulb. This is another result of the way the sensor is being read and can result in inconsistent exposure. This is where the key benefit of a global shutter comes in. Because the whole sensor is being read out at the same instance, these artifacts don't occur. However, depending on the sensor design, global shutter sensors often have a loss in sensitivity and dynamic range compared to rolling shutter sensors. The traditionally sized 36 by 24mm 24.6 megapixel sensor used in the A9 III is surprisingly sensitive. It features a base ISO in S-Log3 S-Gamma3.Cine of 2000, which is pretty high for a modern Alpha Series camera. If you're planning on shooting video with it, make sure to grab a nice quality ND, as you're going to need it when shooting outside in the sunlight. I managed to grab some port cap shots to see if it has any second base ISO noise reduction, which it does seem to have. When going from 5000 to 6400, we can see a clear difference, and 6400 does look pretty close to 2000 in these examples. We didn't get a chance to shoot any super low light stuff, but we did manage to get it into some pretty contrasty scenes, and I think the dynamic range looks pretty good, especially considering my A7S III was also struggling in these brighter scenes. I really do want to get it into the studio though at some point to test properly though. Let us know what other tests you'd want to see with it down below. If you are one of the 70% of people not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing as we are trying to hit 100k by the end of the year, and we would really appreciate your help. And if you want to buy anything you see in this video, or want to get your hands on this new camera or any other kit for that matter, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. The A9 III features a very similar array of specs and features for video that you would find in most modern Alpha series cameras. This includes a range of recording formats including 4K XAVC-SI and HS, it can capture 422 10-bit, and can output 16-bit RAW via the full-size HDMI port. Internally, it can capture 4K up to 60p or oversampling 6K's worth of the sensor, and this footage does look very detailed. Another first in an Alpha series camera, you can now capture 4K 120p while using the full sensor, but this isn't oversampled. It features the same color profiles you'd expect from this type of camera, so you have S-Cinetone, S-Log3, S-Gamma3.Cine, and you can ingest your own LUTs as well. It doesn't have a Cine EI mode like some of Sony's other cameras, just the flexible ISO exposure mode, which, to be fair, is the one I think most people will use if they're using this camera. It also has a lens breathing compensation mode when using Sony E-mount lenses. The autofocus is the same up-to-date AI-driven autofocus system that is present in cameras like the A7R5. And it's excellent. And it needs to be to keep up with how fast everything else is being captured in this camera. Given its price compared to the likes of the FX6 and FX3, which are clearly more specifically designed for video acquisition, it may not be the first choice for more video-focused users. However, as a hybrid camera, it is excellent, though I do think a few changes here and there would make it a very specific but unique video solution for certain creators and productions. As this is primarily a photography camera, I wanted to cover some of the major updates in this area as well. The global shutter means that this camera can do a bunch of things that haven't been possible in a stills camera before. It has a maximum shutter speed of 1/80,000th of a second, which drops to 1/16,000th of a second in continuous mode, but this will be changing in an upcoming firmware update. It can flash sync across the entire shutter speed range, which is very impressive, and it has a maximum continuous burst mode of 120 frames per second, of which you can do in bursts of roughly 1.6 seconds or 192 frames. This insane frame rate doesn't limit your resolution or autofocus at all, but there are limits as to what flavour of RAW you can shoot in. You can adjust this burst mode on the fly using the new C5 button on the front of the camera, and that way you don't absolutely rinse through your cards. It also features a new pre-capture mode. This allows you to capture a predefined time buffer of images that the camera is constantly storing on internal RAM when you hit the shutter button. This can be dialed in from 0.1 to 1 second, and it's a seriously awesome addition given the camera's other specs. With this addition, it would have been really awesome to see this introduced for video as well. This would have made it even better for wildlife and sports filmmakers. We've already fed this back to Sony, so fingers crossed it's something they listen to. The body of the A9 III is a little bit different to some of the previous Alpha cameras. It's a bit bulkier and the grip feels a bit more rounded and fuller. The top dial has a star on it as well now, which deactivates the dial and puts the functions of it onto the touchscreen. Another cool little detail is that when you're capturing at the higher continuous rates in stills mode, the camera will group them together, and then on the rear of the camera when you're looking through them, you can select and choose your best shot in the bursts. This means you don't have to scroll through potentially hundreds of the same image, just the bursts. The screen mechanism is the same as the A7R5, which I really like, and hopefully we see it on other new Sony cameras more focused for video soon. So what does this camera signify about the future of Sony cameras? Well, for photography, the A9 III is a true leap that many photographers have been waiting for. It breaks limitations that have been in place since the introduction of digital and mirrorless camera technology. While for a lot of photographers its spec is complete overkill, it's a great step to bring global shutters to the masses, and I can't wait for more people to experience what it's like to capture stills with this camera. For us video and cinema creators, this is a good sign of things to come. Global shutter sensors used in video cameras isn't a new thing. Red have used them in their Komodo cameras, Zcam have a couple of models with them in, and Sony have used them in the past in cameras like the F55. But this is the first time that we have seen a full-frame global shutter sensor in a consumer camera, which is really exciting. From the initial samples that I've looked at and shot, I really hope we see this sensor being used in a Sony Cinema Line camera. Maybe in Sony's long-awaited update to the FX9. The FX9 has become a staple in TV and broadcast, and across productions that would really benefit from a global shutter. So it would be awesome to see this sensor adapted into a Cinema Line camera. I also think 6K is a great sweet spot right now for productions wanting to deliver in 4K, but also have some wiggle room in post for cropping or stabilization, and this sensor could deliver that as well. Next year is going to be a very exciting one, so make sure to subscribe to hear our thoughts as soon as anything new gets released. With these new products, Sony also announced firmware updates for the Alpha 1, A7S III, and the A9 III, which should be available in March next year. This includes the A7S III getting breathing compensation and DCI 4K 24p. I know that there are still some other features that people want to see brought onto older Alpha series cameras, so fingers crossed this is the start of Sony updating more of their cameras with a few of these specific changes and additions. So this was our quick overview of this exciting update from Sony. The A9 III isn't our target demographic really, but given what it could potentially mean for the future of Sony's more video-centric cameras, I thought it was worth sharing it with you all. Anyway, let us know what you think of the Sony A9 III, and if you have any further questions in the comments below. And if you like the video, please give it a like, and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.